So I've called this 11,000 plus in 50 years. Now, the reason for that is I've got over 11,000 hours in the 50 years. All these hours, nothing is on autopilot. These have all been manually flown by myself. So I've never ever used a autopilot as such. Do a quick rundown of my SAF career from 1973 to 2002. I've got pictures as we go along. Any questions, please feel free to ask. The ops room and MAOT tours, some of the more memorable. I know Don has covered a lot of the flying and that, and those that were present. I'm going to do something a little bit different. So not concentrating on all the flying, but what the other jobs were for us as fighter pilots. Mostly supporting the chopper pilots as such, as MAOTs, and doing ops tours. Then I'll have a look at some of the BFTS Tamworth, my time there, 4 years, which turned into 18 years. I apologize if I can't remember names, places, dates as such, but I won't be talking any politics. Okay, so people always ask, how did it begin? Well, that was the view from my porch veranda as a kid. And that at the bottom is Durban International Airport with the oil refinery on the other side. Now, 5 Squadron was operating out of there. Harvards were flying around mostly over our place. So that instilled an interest in me. And then, of course, Virginia Airport, we had the Mirage 3 CZ come over there, break the sound barrier a couple of times, break everybody's windows, buses' windows, car windows, everything else. And then I learned to fly an RB. So I started off as a cub. I went to Scouts, I became a Springbok Scout. I then went to the Wanderers, Venturers, Rovers. And when I was in the Wanderers, Venturers and Rovers, I started flying up at Orreby in Pietermaritzburg. So that's more or less just a view of that lot. And then my first solo, Zulu Sierra Foxtrot Oscar Zulu, 16 April 1972, Papa Cherokee 140. This photo was actually developed by myself, which was some of the things that we did on the part of the Rovers and that. After that, my SAF career, went to the SAF gym. You can see the roofie right hasn't come up. Okay, it'll come up just now. SAF gym. First introduction to the Air Force and the corporals and that. Used to take you on a really roofie rit. I suppose everybody's been on that. And Donotta, we started after 3 months of assessment, we started the flying. Then went down to the military academy in Saldanha for officer training after our 6 months in Donotta, and then ended up at Longewaanberg for 9 months on the Impalas. 5 December 1974, got my SAF wings. I was posted to 8 Squadron Bloemfontein, went back down to Longewaanberg, did operational training course there, back to 8 Squadron, and then the middle of the year onto Sabres. Now, when on fighter pilots as such, it takes about 5 to 7 years to get there. So I managed to get onto Sabres within a year and a half of getting my wings, and then I was on Mirages in the beginning of 1977. So it took me 2 years to get there. On that, you've almost probably seen Top Gun, Iceman and Tom Cruise, Maverick, competing for the Top Gun trophy. Well, I actually won the Top Gun trophy on our course. Now, that of course came with some consequences on the evening, because they take that trophy and they fill it up with everything that's on the pub there. And second is, you and your instructor's got to drink it out. Unfortunately, my instructor at that stage, Jan Nivert, unfortunately passed away. He was sent to the border. So his wife had to come and drink it. Now, she had a new baby. So she presented the trophy, and the ops clerk from the Mirage hangar, she looked after the baby, did the babysitting. Anyway, the next day was quite a heavy day, as you can understand. And I had quite a shine for the ops clerk in the ops room in the Mirage hangar, but I was too shy to ever ask her to go out. And anyway, the morning I go to the final briefing. That night we're going out for a supper, end of the course, and who comes down the walkway, the passageway, but the ops clerk. So I ask her, get up the courage and ask her to go out with me that evening. She didn't give me an answer. Of course, I had to go around to Estelle, my instructors, because she was there with her, and ask her again. And Estelle convinced her to go ahead and go out with me. Well, that was 48 years ago, going on 49 in June, and we've been married 46. So it's my wife, Lorraine. I thought I'd just bring that out. It was a special moment in my life. Anyway, I then went to 2 Squadron in Waterkloof. We then went to Hoedspruit, and then in 1981 I was sent down to an instructor's course, Langebaan again. There I flew for the Silver Falcons, the aerobatic team, as number 4 for just over 1.5 seasons. And then 7 Squadron moved up. I was supposed to go back to 2 Squadron, and they made me the 2RC of 7 Squadron. So just some photos here quickly. The Sabre course that we were on. Beautiful aircraft to fly. And as you see me sitting there, arm on, there, your hand is resting on the throttle. And you can fly to 250 knots with that canopy open. So it's a beautiful experience, just flying. Then I went on to Mirage OCC. We were 15 on course. There's only 14 there because one joined us later, Hubs Fous. He was from a Frenchman of one of the French colonies. And of course, that's our wild party. So there's Jeff Garrett. That is myself, James Erlang, Cor Greep. I can't remember his name. It didn't last very long. John Orr, JP Vessel. That was R.C. Dupe, Bassi Wasserman, who later on became our best man at our wedding, and Theo Nell, Potgieter, yeah. And then Johan Rankin, he later on became our flying ace as such, and Paddy Carolyn, and my first instructor, Bill Uncumra, at Langebaan, at Denotta on Harvards. So yes, so we were 15 at the end. And so we were the largest Mirage course out there. At 2 Squadron, Hoedspruit, Lorraine there, not yet, okay. So that was our mascot. It was a live mascot. Used to run around in the crew room, and we used to take it to the pub on a Friday night, and that's Lorraine drinking a glass of wine with our mascot. So it was a great time at 2 Squadron. In 1980, after Langebaan Weg, I went back to 2 Squadron as the 2RC, and then in 1990, the officer commanding passed away. Now, I was busy organizing the 50th anniversary for that, so it was quite a big occasion, and then he passed away. So I was put in the Sunday. We were all at an air show the Tuesday. The Sunday got back. He started feeling sick. Monday, he was in hospital. Tuesday, passed away. So I was quick. So they came around and put me as the officer commanding. Now, there were a couple of things going. We were retiring the Mirage 3s, plus we were closing up 2 Squadrons. So I had 167 ground crew to find posts for, plus all the pilots, which was 16 and 18. The recce flight had already moved out, and they all had posts themselves. But trying to get everything wrapped up, run the squadron, try and fly, try and organize that 50th anniversary, and it was a massive anniversary as well. It was quite a year for me. I was shot at the end. Anyway, after that, they posted me to 89 Combat Flying School in the Cheetahs to be an instructor. I had done a pilot attack instructor's course when I was down at Langebaan, which entitled me to train combat pilots and everything from air to air refueling, to air to ground, to air combat maneuvering, the whole lot we did. Then they moved the Cheetahs from there to Louis Trichardt from Petersburg, and in 2002 then we immigrated across here. So that's just a quick rundown of how we went through. That was our 2 Squadron mascot in Waterkloof. Unfortunately, it died in the bushfire when it was put out to rest, unfortunately. And one of the highlights of that 2 Squadron at Waterkloof was this. This is another story in itself. When 3 chiefs of the Defence Force get together in a pub and get a bit drunk and then come up with challenges. So we did a 50 fly pass, and the Navy had to put so many submarines in, and the Army had to put so many tanks out, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was us, all the 50 of us that flew in that fly pass. Between everything, remember, we were still at war at that stage, and we were flying, and you had to do your training. So we were up and down supersonic ACM camps in Durban, doing missile firing down the Longabonweg. We were doing weapons camps in Uppington and Bloemfontein and all over the place. So we were always busy. Lorraine and I worked out our first 12 years of marriage, I might have been home for 2 years. That's how much we were away. Now, we were at Longabon the one time, and I'd briefed, we were working ourselves down to 400 foot for air combat, because it was the only place we could survive against the MiG-23. So we took the students as they came through, we brought them down by level, until they were happy to get them down. I was walking out to the aircraft to brief my student. He was down to 3,000 foot when the flight commander ran out and said, "Oh, come back, come and rather take this guy, and because he's a bit behind." So briefing was on the board, briefed him, and out we went. We were only airborne for less than 5 minutes. What we do is you set up on the beam and the other aircraft, and then he calls in, and then you go into a turn as the leader, and he comes in, he gets a missile shot on you and a gunshot, then he breaks off to the other side, calls off, you reverse, level, and then he'll call in again, and so you go on till the fuel runs out, the training that we do. Unfortunately, I was in the turn, and I'm waiting, and now you've got this timing that you know he should have called off. And I thought, yeah, I'm looking for him up there, and as I rolled my wings level, I just saw this aircraft in the death spiral as such. It had departed, and the nose was pitching up, and he was rolling. I knew somehow he'd managed to depart this aircraft. Now, you need at least on 20,000 feet or so to get rid of it, and we were at 3,000 feet. So there was no ways he was going to recover. So I called him to eject, and he had a bit of temporal distortion. My voice over the radio activated him, and he pulled the handle. All I saw of him, there was fog over the sea at that stage, and as he went into the fog, I saw the canopy come off and him coming out, and then the whole lot was in the fog. He hit in the water. The splash that went up actually wet him from the aircraft, and lucky he was over the water, otherwise he would have been in the fireball. We were still full of fuel. We'd only been airborne for less than 5 minutes at that stage. So going into the water actually saved him. And then in 1991, I get a phone call from one of our friends, and they used to have that body beat in the morning at about 6 o'clock. Anybody remember body beat? We were always on the way to work, but he worked in the ops room. Norman Bruton, unfortunately, also passed away at this stage. And he phoned me and said, "Bob, did you see your aircraft? The girls were dancing on the wings, doing their gym exercises and everything else." So I said, "No." So the next day I'm watching this, but unfortunately they were then on the Buccaneer, which was parked next to me. So they contacted me and said, "Please come through," because we all had our own aircraft. So I had 813, which is this one here, and another one, 803, which was the blue one. Yeah, I think now. Gee. And anyway, they, because I was the last OC of the squadron, they donated this aircraft to them. So it's a real honor to have your aircraft in a place like the National Historical War Museum. And that's just a picture from their website itself. And that's my plaque in the front. So if you ever go to Johannesburg and you go to the National Historical War, I know that face. Yeah, so. Okay, so the Cheetahs, that's an actual replica of that drawing up the front. And beautiful aircraft to fly. Just some of the courses, that's Air Force Base Louis Trichardt, when we moved up there, and one of the posters of the Cheetah. So I'll just run through some of the photos. This photo I actually took myself. I was due to go out to do refueling myself that day. Lorraine and my son were in the 707, the refueling, the tanker, and mine went US. So I managed to jump into a car and race down to movements and got into the aircraft just before it closed the doors. And I managed to get some of the photos of I've got quite a lot, but I didn't put too many on. Okay, so that's just a quick rundown of what my whole flying career was like. We did other things as fighter pilots. We did MAOT and ops tours. These were the 1 year I was away so much that I only did 46 hours total flying. So yeah, the ops room on Dongwa was one of the places that we flew into and out of quite often. And one of the ones that I did, which was quite interesting, was up here at Ian military base. So I was posted there for 3 months as such. Christmas time comes around, so I'm there for, I think, anniversary, Christmas, anniversary, my birthday, New Year's, the whole lot, I'm up there. The pork went off. So everybody that had pork was Casevac. Next thing, all we know is people are just lining up at the toilets. I wasn't eating pork at that stage. So me and a couple of other people were fine. So all the families that come up from wherever they were, for the permanent people at Ian, and we had to Casevac them all out of there on Christmas Day. Now the officer commanding himself, he was quite a character, and he could get into the kudu that we had up there. We used to do reconnaissance. So the one day I went out with them to go have a look, and he said, "Can you sit in the right-hand seat?" So I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem, because then I can move left and right in the back seat to look out." This guy could start that aircraft. He knew exactly, 5-4 Battalion, officer commanding. He knew how to start it. He did the run-ups, the power checks, the whole lot, give it over to the pilot. When we came back, he'd take over, he'd do the whole shutdown, and then give it back to the pilot, and we all get out. He had just memorized all the checks. There'd been so many flights up there. The troopie that you see there, every night we used to meet in the pub and have a couple of drinks, which is normal. One night I'm walking past the tents, the troopies. Normally I used to go down there and along the road. This tonight, because I was late, I took a shortcut. I had some admin to do. And in the one tent there's a troopie sitting there with his R4 rifle in his mouth, finger on the trigger. Yes. What do you do? Anyway, it took me an hour. I eventually got the rifle away from him. On the way there, they'd sent a second lieutenant out to come look for me because I was an hour late in the pub, something not normal. And I asked him to go call the Doomney, handed him over, gave the officer commanding the rifle. So, yeah, it was one of those special moments as well. But Bailey's, who knows Bailey's? New Year's Eve, we have this massive meal. It is absolutely perfect. I haven't had a better meal on New Year's Eve than that. Wine, champagne, everything else. We toast the New Year in, champagne. The next thing, these bottles of Bailey's get put out in front of us, all the officers. Officer commanding gets up and he says, "Come." And off we go to the pool. So I know Bailey's are sweet, so I take a bottle of red wine with me. You have to get in the pool, take the bottle in your mouth, go under the water, drink, come up, show it to the next guy that you had drunk some out of there, and so it would go around the whole way. And you weren't allowed out the pool till your bottle of Bailey's was finished. It was quite a long night. Right, I've got here down the bottom, 61 Mech. I know there's somebody from 61 Mech. Okay, right. You'll know the size of the insects down there. And the worst thing is, people would go in from the pub and they would leave the lights on in the toilets. And you go in the next morning and the place is just crawling. It's just these massive big insects all over the place. We had to Casevac one of the firemen. I don't know if you know that story, but he climbed into, they called them piss mortar. Yeah. And he climbed into his sleeping bag with a couple of them. And the next morning when he woke up, he was so burnt and everything else, we had to fly him out of there. Yeah. That's how bad they were. But it was a brilliant 2 weeks, riding around with the tanks and the rifles, and we did night ops because they were planning for that attack out of Quito and everything else that was due to happen. So it was I really enjoyed it. This next slide is of the Etosha Pan. I'd been on the ops tour in Ondangwa, and a great friend of mine, Dennis Barnard, we were on course together, and he was flying for the water affairs up there on Okavanga. And he took me for a flight the one day, and we flew over. He had a twin and a chopper. And it was about 2 weeks after I got back, and he had unfortunately flown the chopper into the Etosha Pan. He was low level, and something went wrong, and he unfortunately killed himself. So I've done that MAOT training with 6-1 mech. I get back, and I'd been on another tour. I get back the Thursday. I go buy my cement, everything to build my braai out the back. And on the Monday morning, I start. Lorraine was working for Eskom. She's off to work started at 7, and I get the call, 8 o'clock. Be at the airport at 10 o'clock. You're going back to the border. Well, all my browns, everything else were dirty, all had to be washed. So I had to phone Lorraine quickly, come and just iron the cleanest brown that I've got. Anyway, go up there, and 10 o'clock, just after 10 o'clock, we take off. The state president's HS-125 lands, picks me up, and off we go. So the pilot I knew, the air hostess, didn't know her, but she came and offered me a whiskey, state president's whiskey. Well, I wasn't going to refuse. So just after 10 o'clock, drinking his whiskey on the way to the border. So it was fly up to Pretoria in the HS-125, 707 up to Grootfontein, Dakota up to Rundu, and then Rundu up this way, and then from there into a Bosbok out to Buffalo, which is 3-2 Battalion over there. Landed there, back of a Land Rover, into there. Man, it was supposed to have been for 2 weeks. I came back 6.5 months later. I'd gone up with shorts and that, so it was the summertime. And it went into winter. So I had nothing. I didn't have a jacket, anything else. So I go down the one morning, and the guys are standing around there. They've got their big jackets on, their balaclavas, they've got their, because it can get cold up there, as you know. And everything, and I'm in my shorts and my short sleeve shirt. Echo Victor, Eddie Fulyun, he comes along, the officer commanding, and he looks at these guys and he says, "You are special forces. Look at this pilot. He's standing here in his shorts and that. Get that." And he swore at them, and they had to get undressed. So I thought, well, we'll take off all their jackets and everything else. So the next morning I go along, they've got a jacket and everything for me. I said, no. And they had to take their jackets off again because he's coming along. And I kept that on every morning. But anyway, it was quite a good time. And I'll just stick to this one for a while. We then went onto an ops. We went to attack Quito Carnival up there. We're 15 kilometers south. We had the G5s, the rockets, launchers and that. And we initially went from there up to Jamba, UNITA, and then we traveled all the way up to Mavinga, and then across to where we positioned ourselves down to the south. Now, out to the left there, Monongwe, was Graham Richard. He was our eyes because that's where the fighters were coming from. So they were flying around looking for us, and they did do some attacks on us, on the convoy, and one strafing attack with a MiG-21, but unfortunately he didn't come down our line, he came across. And if you run across at them, then it's more difficult when you've got to pitch the aircraft down to get anything because you're throwing all the bullets up. Luckily with the MiG-21, it keeps its rounds inside, whereas the Mirage throws them out. And with that, we were lucky because none of them could hit us because they were all kept inside. But spent 2 nights under quite intensive rocket and artillery fire from them out there. And our eyes, Graham Richard, they found out he was there. And he was there with the recce's. So they had to do a hot extraction of him to get him out, because they had found out where he was and they were going to fetch him. Now we're sitting in Tamworth in the crew room. Graham and myself are discussing this. Pine Pinar, project manager for BA Systems, he comes in, wants to know what are we talking about, and we tell him. So I said, I remember that. Were you? Because when you get out the chopper, you just go. So you never ever met. But there's the three of us involved in this operation, sitting in the crew room in Tamworth, New South Wales. So quite an amazing thing. I've got this other one here, Swapa, Katima Mulilo, Popo. We were down in Longabon. This is 1978. We're supposed to go back at the end of November. I'm getting married on the 30th of December. Comes the end of November, we get the orders to go up to Katima Mulilo. So we go up there and we sit there for 2 weeks. So the first day is beautiful weather. Swapa is holding a great big rally out there, so thousands of people. Int officer comes back and we go over, 5 of us, at Mach 0.93, 600 odd knots. And I don't know if you've ever heard a Mirage coming along at that speed. You don't hear it till it's overhead you. Okay, and there's one loud bang. So anyway, he comes back and says, it's the best pawpaw he's ever seen. So what's pawpaw? He said, no, all the kids and some of the men were all up in the trees, because all trees around there. And when we came out, they all fell to the ground like pawpaws. And of course, they broke arms and legs, and the mummies were, as they normally do, bouncing around. So we disrupted them completely. So it was complete success there. Okay. This is part of 3-2 Battalion, Buffalo. Well, just in Angola, just across the border from Angola, yeah. So this is, why do I have this? That's what it looked like at Buffalo. Beautiful. Hippos used to come out at night. We used to go tiger fishing on the, what's it called, the Okavango. And it was really very nice. When we left to go up to the war as such, to attack Quito Carnival, he put on such a Echo Victor, such a spread for us. It was absolutely amazing. And then we flew out to Jamba, and then we were up in Buffels all the way up. So one of their traditions, the Underberg, when you went into the pub, you had to have an Underberg. Because get 100 of those green caps, they get a mug. And those mugs were a gold mug. They used if they lost anybody, they used to inscribe their names on there and put it up on a special so it was quite special there. Right, unfortunately I did have one of those. Landed a bit short at Ndongwa, and a lip about so high, not too good for the tires. Tire burst and off it went and destroyed. They did repair it. They did get back flying again. But you can see these are 68mm rocket launchers, and the one still had some rockets in, and it's bent underneath on this side, pointing directly at the cockpit. So luckily they didn't go off. Yeah, that was quite a journey, because you touched down 165 knots and left the runway at about 150. Would have all been okay. Mirage is a very strong aircraft, but they had a drainage ditch along the whole runway, and as soon as it got to that, it took off, got airborne again, and straight in. Right, 2000, get a phone call. Go across to Pretoria, and then Bart Hopelish, also unfortunately deceased now, he says, how would we like to go to Canada? Lorraine and myself are there. And we said, of course, no problem. So he sent us across. We had basically ATC attaché status, and the idea was to go. It's a joint operation between all the different countries, so that if they ever have to operate together against an enemy, that they can set up their procedures and everything else. So we sat, Lorraine and I and a few of the other attachés that were there, in the center of the double runways, 92 fighters taking off, one after the other, two. Absolutely amazing. Still get goosebumps. So anyway, I went and studied their training methods and everything else for the 2 weeks. That's just some of the photos from there. Managed to get into the F-16 as well, MiG-29 and the F-4. there, and then there's thousands of photos, and of course it's all on the 35 millimeter, so I didn't put all of them on. Right, so I get the same year, I get tasked to go to Beira, Mozambique with the United Nations flood relief. We get over there, it's overcast, it has been raining, and as we're on the descent on the glide slope, a bit of sunshine comes through. So I get up and I look out the window and I see a SAM site, a quadruple SAM-3 site. And then we back in. So I hit my stopwatch. As we landed, hit the stopwatch, and I went to the cockpit and we worked out more or less where the SAM site was. That's it there. Managed to get a chopper ride and we flew over it. Managed to take the photo, sent it back to our intelligence, and they didn't even know it was there. Okay, at that stage, this is what the Air Force looked like. And the harbour was no different. The ships are all over on their sides, rusting like anything in the sea. MiG-15s and that hangar's gone. That's another photo but to get the spool out, I had to take it out, give it to one of the troopies in case anybody had seen us coming over, and then loaded another spool and quickly shot 101 photos, again 36 photos just to get it. Okay, so that was a quick rundown of more or less other tasks that we had. This one to Beira was quite interesting because it was for the United Nations. When we arrived there, the ministers met us of Mozambique, and we went to the hotel. Oh boy, what a dump. And there was absolutely nothing. The windows were broken, air cons weren't working. It's in 38 degrees, it's 98% humidity. The pilot's got to fly all the time. So I got 22 in my crew as such, MAOT team. And I turned to the finance minister, the finance lady from the Air Force. I said, how much does this cost? So she said $19 US a night per person. So I said, how much do we have? She said, $69 US. I said, and what happens to the rest? No, that goes to the SAP fund. So I turned to the minister and I said to him, is there a 5-star hotel around here? He says, yes. Right, let's go. We walk in, it's $101 a night per person. So I talked to the manager, I said, I've got 22 people, I can only pay you $69 a night. He said, great. I said, and that needs to include breakfast. He said, okay. And we stayed there for $69. So it was good. Yeah. So at the end of the beginning of 2002, I get a phone call, the same Graham Richard, that was our eyes there, Monongwe, and he asked me, do I want to come to Tamworth and be an instructor? So I said, of course. Lorraine, I didn't want to leave the Cheetahs. I was really enjoying my flying on the fighters, but she convinced me to come across. Great. So that's how I became an instructor in BAE Systems in Tamworth. We flew the CT4. I'll just quickly show you what the CT4 looks like. And at the end of the time, we did them all up. There's more photos of the way we did them up. We did the flight screening. So anybody wanting to become a pilot would come across. Kids from school, year 10, 9, come across, and we'd give them 10 flights. So they'd arrive on the Saturday. Sunday, we'd give them a full day's briefings of everything, all the flights they're going to do. Monday, 1 flight each. Tuesday, 2 flights each. Wednesday, 1 flight. So it was 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. We had to be finished by the Wednesday so that we could have the round table on the Thursday. They flew with 2 BAE instructors and 2 military instructors, and then they did their final test with a military instructor. So it was quite a good, and then we'd sit down and discuss them, and are they eligible to come back or not? So after that, if they were selected, they would come back for 6 months and do their final pilot's training. So that was the flight screening. While we were there, Rotary Aviation Careers Expo used to run that. It was a program where we got kids from year 9 and 10 that wanted aviation career, and they'd come in on the Sunday afternoon, put them up for 3 days, cost them $100, and they had 3 meals and everything else, and we would have presenters from everything from commercial pilots to air hosties, the whole lot that we had. ATC, we used to take them up there, the works. And then they could make a decision which role they wanted to go into. It was pretty intense, and sometimes we thought that the schools had sent their worst students to get rid of them for a couple of days because some of them were really not very tolerable. Anyway, that was a rotary aviation career. It did help a lot of students, and we did get a lot of them that came back to come and fly as well. The instruction style, okay, the 4 years this was on the end of a 10-year contract that I went up for 4 years. And because the ADF had to build new places, get new aircraft, everything else, it extended out to 18 years. And that came up just at the end of 2019, retirement, contract ended, so it worked out really fine for us. In that last year, I led an 8-ship of CT4s down to the Avalon Air Show. And this was quite a exercise in timing because of the winds and that, and you only had a 15 minutes slot to get in. And the CT4 doesn't have very much acceleration if you're behind time. So that was, and then we flew up the coast all the way past Sydney, Newcastle, and back home again. So it was a really nice trip. Okay, so that is the CT4. Was pretty well equipped. Fully aerobatic, spin capable, and GPS, fully IF rated, the whole lot. Very capable little aircraft. Here is the flight line when it's full, and that's how we try to get it every day empty with all the flights. We had one of the highest rates of aircraft movements anywhere in Australia, at Tamworth. The other one, the Cap 10 over here, we used that as well, the tail dragger. It was a real handful, and the fuel gauge used to go like this. So you had to work on time. And then one of our instructors actually did a touch and go, and as you open up the power, the engine cut. You had run out of fuel. So you had to be very careful with your fuel management. Okay, so on the left-hand side there's what the dongas look like, all the normal, all the instructors had one of those. Then I became the aviation safety manager of BA Systems. So I had my own office, and I spent 13 years in that role as the aviation safety manager. Great. We had many functions as such, and they did them all up. Anybody recognize that one from Planes, the movie Planes? Yeah. And did all the different ones and that. With our briefings and that, you had to do a board brief. Now, this would take you about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to put a board brief up. So I put all of this onto computer. Well, our IT manager, but it was my idea. We called it the pilot briefing system. So everything that you needed for that flight was on computer, so you could just call it up, because many a time you would be tasked for something like this. You've done your board and they retask you to do IF1 or something. Now you clean it all off and do a new board up again. So I did that, and you'll see bronze awards, so international throughout BA Systems. So got a bronze award from BA Systems for the system itself. There was 13 A4 pages of checks that you had to know off by heart. Don he knows what it's like with the ADF. And you couldn't say boost pump on because it's boost pump low. And if you did that, many a student actually failed their flight because they said something like that, just something wrong. And everything was, you had to do it almost word perfect. All your briefings, all your flying patter, the whole lot was this, like it is there. That's how you had to do it. So it was quite a handful. And of course, that would be a flight. So that you take this up so that you can do it exactly as that was. And then every year we were checked by CFS, Central Flying School. They'd come up and you would have to do it word for word exactly as they wanted it. So it was quite a stressful time. In the end, my 11,000th hour, the project manager, he said, well, instead of just going up, let's go out as a formation. So I briefed the formation as the leader, and off we went. And when we got back, he'd organized that, put Robert Crinall 11,000 hours, and I was able to take Lorraine with me, and we flew in formation, and then we broke away and did some aerobatics and everything else. So that was it. He was a pretty great guy. That's him over there on the left-hand side. And then his 2RC in the center, myself, Lorraine, and then one of the ground crew who was a pilot as well, commercial pilot. And the other two ladies are HR from BA Systems. He could fit into a CT4. Yeah, no, he was a big guy. But one of the better commanding, well, not commanding officers, they call them project managers that we served under there. Great. When we left Tamworth in 2019, that is what was Tamworth. That's the 18th hole on the Long Yard golf course, the lake. It was so hot, the drought. Those are golf balls in the center there. You couldn't get to them because the mud was so deep. So that's how dry it was. And then we moved on down here, where we are now. Great. Well, thank you for your attendance. I hope I haven't been boring or anything like that. Are there any questions or anything? Sure.
Your time in 5-4 Battalion in Haga, I was signals officer at Ukongu, otherwise known as Nukongu.
Right.
Did you visit that?
No, I didn't ever get there, but did do a lot with Kufut in Hana as well. Well, they wanted us to set out flares, go out with the recce's and set out flares for the Buccaneers and the Canberras. So you had to go up to the terrorist camp and start from there and then set these flares out, which they activated when they came over. I said, no ways. No, I go so far, but I'm not doing that. Thank you very much.
Were you involved with any of our reduced Mirage pilots? We sent
yes.
a couple of squadrons down, I think, in the early 70s.
At 2 Squadron. I arrived 2 Squadron 1977, so we had quite a lot of them. When we moved to Hoedspruit, because of the secretiveness of the base, they all went back. They were not very happy. One of them had an E-type Jaguar they used to drive around. Lorraine, you remember all? And yeah, and they lived up on Barterkloof Ridge, and they had a ball. It used to be a real good time parties at that place, boy. But yes, we did. And they would send the hunters down from Rhodesia to Petersburg with the drop tanks, and of course they weren't full of fuel. They used to take back the whiskey and chocolates in the drop tanks. Yeah, no, we'd had a lot of goodies with them.
Can I just say thank you very much for a very informative talk.
Thank you very much.
It's custom to give a bottle of something to the guest speaker. We cognizant of the fact that your good wife is here tonight. We made it a kind of pink drink. So
pink, yeah, no, she likes it.
That's what you want. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Really appreciate it.